Hello guys, Sanjay here. So this is the panel of my books, and I want you to look in particular at this book. It has something special. It was reviewed on EDN too, but it holds a secret. For the first time ever, I believe, I introduced a scaringly simple but extremely rigorous design procedure for resonant topologies. And this is the preface where I describe how I stumbled onto it and felt that I had landed on the moon. Scaling laws have been around ever since nature has been around. Only now we are starting to realize their significance, and you'll realize it even more so when in the next few slides I'll show you the limits of their technology and approach versus ours. They were described in detail in my book, of course, but they were also presented to an international forum, ISSCC. They are also there in my China tour complete, and I was also recently invited to present it to an IEEE audience in the Bay Area on July 25th. The only scaling law we need for our particular exercise is input voltage scaling. We're going to keep everything else the same. We're not going to get into the details of the technology, the magnetic structures, the intelligence, and we're just going to assume that vehicle electric charging is basically a form of Qi charging with fixed frequency, and we're going to scale that to a higher power level by simply changing the input voltage, and we'll do the same with our technology. The frequency of Qi is roughly the same as the frequency for electric vehicle charging. The beauty of this method is you don't need to know our magnetic structure or our proprietary algorithms. We just take what we have achieved at a lower input voltage and scale it to a higher input voltage, 380 volts in the case of electric vehicle charging, and see the results. As indicated in the previous video, modern vehicle electric charging in the form they have been doing it so far is just a scaled up version of Qi. So let's take a Qi IC, state of the art from IDT 9242. An important thing to note here is it delivers 15 watts at 19 volts input. Now let's scale the input voltage from 19 volts to 380 volts as in vehicle electric charging. The scaling factor is a function of V squared, so the scaling factor is 400, and that gives us a maximum achievable peak of 6 kilowatts. That's with their existing methods of fixed frequency operation. Yes, if you tune it intelligently or manually, you might get 11 kilowatts as they were claiming not too long ago.
Upwards of 90%.
You're kidding.
No, it's not kidding. We
At
can
what
get
power
these
level?
systems. We're talking systems that are 11 kilowatts and higher.
Wow.
So now let's look at the only release, if you can call it that, the BMW 530e based on Witricity's technology. They achieved 3.2 kilowatts at an efficiency of 85% through a gap of 8 centimeters, which is about 3 inches. Astounding. This is after 10 years and about $50 million. Had they used my simple scaling laws, they may have been wiser, and a lot of investors would have saved a lot of money. But the worst is yet to come. Based on 85% efficiency, they're losing 565 watts. And if you know spiral coil structures, typically 80% of the losses are on the receiver side. So on the car, they're having to dissipate 452 watts. In other words, the battery which they're charging has to double over as an electronic cooling system, and the whole car has to be a giant heatsink for dissipating 450 watts safely. Keep in mind that our receiver coil resistance is 10 times less than a typical spiral coil, and add to that our intelligent firmware which tracks the resonant peak. We have demonstrated we get 80 watts from 15 volt supplies. So do the scaling. Our scaling factor is 641, and we scale 80 watts by that factor to a maximum predicted peak of 51 kilowatts. Indeed, compared to their predicted 6 kilowatts. And even if we had decided to use our technology for the BMW 530e for exactly 3.2 kilowatts, we would have had a loss of only 45 watts compared to their 452 watts. That's on the receiver side where it matters the most. And because our magnetic structure is so unique, with a flux which is horizontal rather than vertical, we could have actually charged it through a much bigger distance with a receiver coil between the four wheels, not in the hood. Yes, and indeed to all the doubters, thanks to our firmware and our special magnetics, we have on numerous occasions demonstrated that we can get 80 watts from a coil this size from an input supply of 15 volts, if not 12 volts. So let's quickly summarize what we have learned. Based on our stunningly simple scaling laws, we showed that we can achieve 50 kilowatts. They will get stuck at 6. In fact, it seems after 10 years, they are barely at 3. And it seems they're dissipating half a kilowatt in the car, using it as a giant heat sink while you sleep. No wonder the BMW 530e is not yet available for sale. It's just leased in a very curious way. In addition, ChargEdge magnetics are inherently low EMI, and the receiver side flux is horizontal, requiring no heavy ferrite shielding on the underside of the car to prevent eddy currents. So you can put your tiny receiver coil between the four wheels rather than under the hood as they always seem to do. In addition, as you may have seen in a previous video, our magnetic structure is inherently alignment friendly, so you can park a little indifferently. Also, with our resonant peak tracking proprietary firmware, we can cater to cars of different clearances. They achieved a bare 3 inches. Keep that in mind. And finally, because of our low receiver side losses and lack of shielding requirements, the car will run much lighter, so you will get many more miles from a full charge of battery. And don't forget the lessons of Rezence, which Witricity promoted for many years. A lot of companies lost a lot of money, and there is no security in numbers, especially with the new technology. So don't be a victim this time around.
It's real, it's here now. It's real, it's here now.
You're looking at a cell phone powered completely wirelessly.